You're listening to Cash and Sass. I'm Lisa Marie, your go-to gal for all things money. As the Sassy Wealth Queen and the brains behind the Sassy Wealth Coach, I'm here to take you on a thrilling ride from the financial chaos to sassy and sexy money. Welcome back, my sassy friend, for another episode of Cash and Sass podcast. This is Lisa Marie. I'm your host, and I'm the Sassy Wealth Queen behind the Sassy Wealth Coach. And today, my guest is Karen Roberts. Karen is a seasoned fitness industry veteran with over 25 years of experience who made a bold leap into the digital space. After successfully guiding coaches through the transition to online entrepreneurship, she hosted her inaugural online summit in 2020 in the middle of COVID. OMG. Mintwave Radio recognized her expertise and invited her to launch a weekly show, A Coffee with Karen, a cup of positivity with just a sprinkling of woo-woo podcast. Breaking free from the constraints of traditional radio, having interviewed countless coaches, consultants, therapists, and healers, Karen uncovered a common thread: the power of sharing personal stories to expand influence and audience reach. In 2021, she took charge of the station, founding the Raising Vibrations podcast network. Driven by the realization that providing a platform was insufficient, Karen identified a need for a comprehensive strategy, leading her to establish the Podcast Profit School alongside business partner Evans Putman. Currently residing in the top 1% of podcasts globally, Karen empowers others with coaching services and comprehensive post-production support through her business, ensuring her clients not only reclaim their time, but also achieve a tangible return on investment for their podcasting efforts. Welcome, Karen. Thank you for being a guest on my show. And I have to say, one, I'm impressed that you actually, just jumped in right in the middle of 2020 because, hello, that had to be huge. And we were talking just beforehand, and one of the questions I had for you is when we were talking about like the limiting beliefs, and I asked you about the limiting beliefs. One of the things that you said that you used to, or maybe sometimes still believe, is like you don't deserve wealth and abundance, and charging higher prices means I'm greedy. Can you explain a little bit more on how that actually feels or felt and what you do to work through that?
Well, I think I'm sure I'm not the only one, a lot of those probably stem from childhood. Mm-hmm. Not that I was very fortunate. I grew up in a wonderful home. We lived in a big house. I was adopted as a baby, and my parents were very careful with money. So although we had a big house, we never had cash flow, right? We never went on expensive holidays. We never had expensive presents. It was always my dad was an entrepreneur. He was self-employed, but he was always very careful. It was always about saving. And I can remember when they split up, I was probably about 14. And one thing springs to mind when they were sort of divvying up the house, because it was between three of them. My nan lived with us as well. And my mum was mortified that she wouldn't be able to purchase a property that wasn't detached with the money that she would have. And I remember thinking, what's the problem? Money was never the driving force for me. It was all about being happy. I had a lot of jobs, in my younger years, very sort of menial jobs that I didn't enjoy. Mm-hmm. And to know I am not that I'm diagnosed, but through my podcast and learning from coaches, I'm very probably ADHD, which probably fits into that. I was all about having fun, and I fell into, I suppose I was lucky enough to find a career that suited my personality. I went into the fitness industry. Money wasn't the driving force. I wanted to enjoy my life, and I loved doing what I was doing. I was motivating, inspiring people to create change from a fitness and health perspective. And even though maybe personal training brought in more money, I had I wouldn't say big, but I had a fairly big personal training business. I had 3 trainers working for me. I didn't enjoy it as much. So I went to the I don't want to be teaching fitness. I was up on stage. I wanted a big group to get the energy from. I was all very much about the energy. So money was never a driving force, but there was very much a glass ceiling, because I used to figure, you know what, if I can make a living doing this fun thing and making the sort of average income, I'm happy. I never really wanted for more until I had kids.
They change everything.
So they just, and before I became a single mum. So about 20 years ago, so my eldest is 24 now, no more, 23 years ago, I was introduced to the self-development arena. And I did my first program. I think it was called You Were Born Rich by Bob Proctor. And on that, my goal was to own my own fitness studio, buy a house, and drive a 4x4, which I'll just put out there was before, emissions were an issue, right? So that was my goal. And I moved to the Algarve, Portugal, with a 4-year-old and 7 months pregnant. And I always had this attitude of, I'll make it work. We're not going to starve. I wasn't afraid of taking risks. And because we hadn't researched it, whereas I'm sure many people would research moving abroad and starting again, especially with a 4-year-old and a baby, we hadn't. And we realized we couldn't do what we were doing in London, big city. Hello, we're moving to a almost like village type thing abroad. But because of that, the self-development stuff that I was learning, we ended up with a fitness studio for 8 years. I bought a house on the back of it. I did get my 4x4. I got my Mitsubishi truck, my L200. I called it my monster truck. But it wasn't sustainable because the business model was wrong. Again, we didn't really think things through. Again, it was all about having fun, but the business had been built around us. So great for the ego, not so good for a scalable business, right?
Right. And that's really important too, what you said, is because it was fun and it wasn't sustainable. So, I tell people all the time, you need to enjoy what you're doing, and it needs to be realistic and be sustainable, because if it's not going to matter if you enjoy and love what you're doing. So you still have to think about the ins and outs of the business. And yes, that involves money. And again, that's the reason why I'm so passionate about us talking about it, because that was something y'all didn't look at. It was something you didn't talk about, right? And if you would have, I'm not saying you wouldn't have done it. However, you may have realized a way to make it sustainable and more scalable and be able to sustain it and still enjoy it, right? And so I think that's really, really important that my sassy listeners just grab and go, oh, okay, I want to enjoy it, and I still need to be realistic and look at, is this sustainable? Can it be scalable? Can it be, long lasting and give me the return that I want?
Yeah, sure. It just sort of highlights the importance of having a specific strategy. We didn't. We just wanted, this is what we wanted. We loved doing what we were doing. I mean, goodness, if I had it now, with the knowledge that I've accumulated, hindsight's a wonderful thing, right?
Hindsight's 2020.
Yeah. At the time, we didn't. And it was just, we're just going to make this work. And it was only really through I'd even go as far to say stubbornness. It was, yes, we were consistent. Yes, we were persistent. But I was burnt out. It wasn't. And again, be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for, because yes, we loved what we were doing, but it really wasn't. We were always just getting there, just making enough. And yes, we did get what we wanted on the back of that, but it could be done a lot easier if we had the strategy in place.
So what was the switch for you? I mean, you went from fitness to podcasting,
This.
podcast school. I mean, that's like
Well, there was a few steps in between. I moved back to the UK. It'll be 12 years ago this year. And, I've always, because I've come from that industry, I was also a sports therapist. So I've always, I suppose, wanted to help people. I wanted to fix them. I didn't want them to be in pain. So I've always been self-employed, but I was getting to the age where I was thinking, how much longer can I continue this very physically demanding job in both sides of things realistically? So I had to rethink things. And initially, I knew I wanted to be a speaker. I suppose coming from that teaching environment and motivating and inspiring, the next logical step was to speak. But what did I know about online? Nothing. I'm used to jumping around a studio to loud music and having fun. So I took what I would consider now, looking back, I thought I was taking the easy route. So I went online and I was selling other people's programs. I went into high ticket affiliate programs, became a coach. And like you said at the beginning about this not feeling worthy, I think definitely was there because, you know what? I was brilliant at selling other people's stuff.
making other people
Even
money.
in the fitness industry, it wasn't my own programs. I was getting the choreography, I was getting the music. I would learn it and then I would go out and teach it. Great. Why? Maybe I didn't trust my own ability. So I was definitely carrying something in the background from that. So yeah, I was great at selling other people's stuff. I thought I'd made it. I was having consistent 5-figure months, which smashed that glass ceiling that I'd had before. For the first time ever, I was like, oh, it is possible. And then the company shut down overnight. And I got in a lot of debt because I had heavily invested in the company myself. And I made a decision then and there that I was never going to put all my energy, money, effort, hours into something that wasn't for my dream.
Amen to that one.
And my coach at the time said to me, if you're going to create your own program, it's going to take you 3 times as long as you think it's going to take. And it's going to cost you 3 times as much. And he was spot on.
And this was to create what, like the fitness program or?
Well, I had, right. Funny you say that because I did originally. This is before COVID. It's be careful what what your dream is, because at that point I thought I should, those 3 words. I thought I should go back to my roots because, a quarter of a century in that world.
Well, and also I guess in your defense or in your brain, your nervous system is saying this didn't work. Go back to the core because it's safe. And sometimes our nervous system is telling us to do something because quote unquote it's safe, when in reality we need to do the opposite and just remind our nervous system that we're okay.
100%. And it's funny, the universe does definitely push you in that way. And 2 things happened there. So I went and retrained in the ketogenic diet and fasting. So completely different to what I'm doing now, right? Because I thought I should go back to the health and wellness, didn't want to do the physical stuff. And I just launched in the November 2019 at my first big event in London, speaking on stage about that, wanted to do live events. And then, of course, the lockdown happened. Right?
COVID happened.
Yeah, the drama of the last 4 years. So that's when, I'm very much because things have happened. I haven't had a direct route. It's been very up and down. I've made it, lost it, made it, lost it. And I thought, okay, it's out of our control. What next? And I invested in a program to put on online summits. It wasn't for profit because obviously those times were horrendous. And it was just to lift people's spirits.
And I love that, though. I love that.
What could we do? It was like, I didn't, want to just be stuck at home. I needed to do something. And, we're always, as entrepreneurs, we're always constantly learning. And I thought, well, I'll figure it out. I didn't know why I was doing it. It was just, right, I'll learn this. I've got to go online. That was the reality. So, let's start here. And I interviewed 20 coaches from the physical, mental, spiritual perspective. And I just had a fantastic time. Again, the fun aspect. I just enjoyed the whole process. And
well,
from
and not
there,
like that, but not only that, when you're doing what you were doing, the interviewing and lifting people's spirits up, that actually also lifts your spirits up and makes it fun. So it makes it enjoyable. And then you start seeing, oh, okay, you know what? Something could come of this. Okay. Because again, money is important. Yes. Because money is a tool, money is energy, and whether we like it or not, money is how we can actually make an impact because that is the currency that our world uses. And it's also not the only thing that matters. In order to give and to uplift people and to make an impact, doing something like what you're talking about you did, money comes with it. Do you see what I'm saying? It follows because you're opening up into the universe. And that's something I have to remind myself quite often. And I'm admitting that because again, I'm a wealth coach and I don't want people to think, oh, we work on our money mindset and we work on all this stuff and then we won't ever have to work on it again. That is not the case. You and I had this conversation, Karen, right before. You're like, I'm still working on it. I'm like, well, guess what? You will always be working on it because so am I. So I just think it's really important for that to be said and heard and taken in. But I love how you were doing that. So when you went and did that, what came from it? Because part of that was you were invited to go do this coffee with Karen, and it was with some woo-woo involved. And was there some shift in your money mindset and how you thought about you being worthy in order for you to make that shift into where you're at now?
I think so. Again, I was carrying I'm not worthy, I think, at that time because it was all about the guest.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's all about me holding a safe space for the guest to share their story. It was all about lifting them up. It was always about bigging them up rather than myself. So when I started it, a coffee with Karen, like, what does that even mean, really? There was no structure. There was no link. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have a business at that time, right? It was just, and I'm enjoying this. Okay, I've been offered a radio. I'm just going to keep going and I'll figure it out. There was no real thought process. I was just keeping doing. I thought I'd learn as I go. And I was interviewing. The reason it was woo-woo is because I'd stuck with the summit formula. Coaches from the physical, mental, or spiritual perspective. So some of my guests were a little bit woo-woo, and I didn't want to put people off. So that's why I said it with the sprinkling of woo-woo to try and introduce maybe some other to the mainstream. I think a lot of people, I think it's all woo-woo.
Oh, I think it's all involved in it. Yeah, very much so.
We just call it the mental or the physical, but it's all intertwined. So I suppose I was still in that mindset. It wasn't about me. And it's interesting what you said earlier, because what I found through interviewing all these different coaches or healers, I found that the more woo-woo ones had very specific money blocks. You could see it because, again, they didn't want to talk about money because they wanted to help the world. And there was a definite block there that they didn't see money as this, there's got to be a two-way flow. If you talk about it being, it is energy, right? And so if it stops, blocks, it's not flowing. Right. And I found that a lot of the ones who were struggling to get clients, it was because of a poor money mindset and this disconnect between, yes, I want to help people and I want to help people who haven't got, well, you've still got to live, the mortgage company still need paying, the electricity still needs paying, you've got to live.
Right.
So there's got to be an exchange of money. And I really do think that a lot of them not coming from a place of, they wanting to help, but they still had this disconnect when they, yeah, definitely. And, I could still see it in myself too. And it was only really when I thought, right, okay, let's get serious now. We've got to turn this into I've got to make more money than this, right? Because I was just doing the show. And then I was thinking, well, I can help with the sales side of things because, I was selling high ticket affiliate programs. Maybe I can create this. And my business was being created, but very disjointedly. It was all over the place and it wasn't in alignment. And it was only really when what happened was last year, 2 years ago, the owner of the station, well, not 2 years ago, just over a year ago, sorry. The owner of the station said to me, when your contract's up at the end of the year, I'm giving it up. Do you want it? And I thought, yes, because I say yes to everything and then figure it out. I thought, great, we've got a platform. Now all these other, they can have their own show and use it as a way to grow their business, right? So again, it was all about them. But I found that many gave up. They didn't, you must know this, a lot of podcasters, they don't even last 10 episodes. And honestly, I've had quite a few that have signed up and they've never even published their first one because overwhelm sets in. They think it was a good idea and then they panic. And because there was no strategy.
Oh yeah, see, and I had a strategy, and for the record, it took me right before COVID happened. I was thinking, it'd be awesome to have a podcast about money, and I went and researched, and I was like, and they were all about the investing and how to do this and how to do that, and I was like, no, that's not what I want, and it wasn't in my brain what exactly I wanted. I just knew it had to be different, and then COVID happened and somebody's like, oh, people are launching podcasts. You go launch podcasts. And I said, are you insane? I got 2 kids who are at home. They're both special needs and they're doing school from no. Podcast got put on the back burner over here and it stayed there. And then in 2021, it kind of popped up, in the back thing. And I started seeing, like what you're talking about, people falling off because they didn't have this strategy. I mean, you saw all these ones going up. Now there's some that have stayed, but there are also some that have gone. And I was like, no, that when I do this, it's got to mean something and it's got to be different. And 2022, and then all of a sudden last year, we started talking about it again and then having conversation. And then I was having a conversation with someone that I was connecting with. And she's like, well, what do you want? I said, I want candid conversations. I want money to stop being a taboo. She said, honey, write that down. Write candid conversations. And from there, I started talking to somebody else. We came up with the name Cash and Sass. And then the candid and my marketing coach and my mastermind comes up with the candid cash conversations. So instead of conversation, it's cash conversations. And from there, I was like, okay, well, I need help, because if y'all wait for me to do all of this, it ain't gonna ever happen, because there's a lot to it.
Yep.
This was like birthing a baby, for the record, y'all. This was like, I mean, doing it right, it's like birthing a baby, because you're in it, and you're making sure that you're making those connections, and you're making sure that you've got guests lined up before you even go live. And that's the way I wanted to do it. And when you took it over and you had people not showing up, what led to you creating the school?
It was really because I was getting to the stage where it was like, oh my goodness, this person isn't renewing. They're giving up. I was like, this isn't working. Something has got to change. And I found this guy who was a coach through podcast guests, because the beauty is you don't know who's going to come on your show. And I can honestly say that I've just had the best conversations with the most amazing people who are doing phenomenal things within their communities. They're all different, serving different people. They've got different tools in their toolbox. And I just love the conversations, because I don't know about you. You could, somebody says, I don't know, they're a mindset coach, and you can look on their website and it can be quite fluffy as to what it is. It's like, what is it you do? Everyone's talking about the wrong things. It's only when you get them on the show and ask them the questions. And by the end of the show, in my head, I've got a completely different idea as to what is it they do. And this goes back to having a right strategy, because nobody wants to hear about what it is I do. I have to share what the promise is. So like for me, I'm just saying, like, I just help coaches grow their business and have fun through podcasting whilst actually getting back their time. They don't want to hear about
getting
all
back
the
their time
stuff.
I want to hear about getting back the time, but most of the people do not want. I'm analytical, so I'm going to naturally want to know, okay? My coach laughs at me all the time because I'm one of the few that will ask those questions. And it's okay that you don't, and it's okay if I'm one like me and you do. But how did it affect your mindset, though, especially in the money mindset, as you were building this?
Fear. Initially,
I want the listeners to hear that. And you still did it, because that's the thing. Fear is not supposed to stop you. It's okay to be scared and do it anyway, as long as in your gut or your heart, whichever one speaks to you the most. Mine's my gut. And you know it and you feel it, that it's the right thing, right?
Yeah. I think that's massive. And I have to say, before I took on the actual whole radio station, so when I say that 23 years ago, I did my first You Were Born Rich with Bob Proctor, it must have been around that time that I'd also purchased a book called The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle. And I read it, but I read it once. I read through You Were Born Rich again and again and again and again, repetition. Now, in a way, really, I think I should have read The Power of Now.
You probably should have read both.
And I bought it, but on Audible, because I'm an audio person, and thank goodness for Audible now. I got rid of a load of books a little while ago, and everything's on Audible now. So I had it on over and over and over, and I heard something that was obviously always there, but I wasn't ready to hear it. And I would meditate and I would do all this stuff, but what I got from The Power of Now was, rather than like relaxing and almost going to sleep meditating, was actually the opposite, being ultra aware. I would drive and listen to it. And so that sounds dangerous, doesn't it? Driving whilst listening to a meditation. But it was the opposite, because the whole focus was to be ultra aware of your surroundings. So actually, I was a safer driver because I could drive and be thinking about what I'm going to do for dinner or, stories going through my head. No, this way I was not thinking. And so I call it now, I was practicing my unthinking. But I'll be ultra, ultra aware. And from that's where the idea came up. I wanted to create a directory for the public to come and find the right fit for them. Because I thought all these coaches that I've interviewed, all doing different things, you may not need a business coach. Maybe you need to deal with some childhood issues, or maybe you need to do this, or maybe you need to do that, which is going to have, money. Maybe you need to sort your money mindset out before you start a business. And it was only 10 days after that the owner of the station came to me. So it was a bit like, oh, I'm on track. Like
the universe was
sort
listening.
of,
Yes.
yeah. And that's when you have that inner knowing that you are doing, you are on track. Although the caveat to that is I have given up the radio station and kept the podcast network. And that was more down to we were doing too many different things, promoting the radio station, their radio shows, and we had to, and that's possibly my ADHD, was let's focus on what's working the best.
Well, you scaled
radio.
It. Sometimes when you scale it, it means scaling back and letting go of something that is too much. So sometimes simplifying things is scaling, because then when you simplify and you're able to focus on what's working, you're able to then expand your wealth and grow.
Yes. And that's exactly what happened. Because I decided I'm going to take on a coach. This is what I love doing. This is what I want to focus on. I'm nearly there, but I'm not quite. And it was only when I took on a coach, Evans was my coach, and the tweaks were really easy because I'd already been going, 2.5 years. And I had this real aha moment, like, why am I doing all this different stuff? I was, on all social media and creating all these different kinds of posts, value posts, curious. I was busy being busy, and I was close to burnout.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing 3 shows a week now. For 7 months, I did 3 60-minute shows a week. Can you imagine all the post-production work?
Oh, no, thank you. 1 show a week.
Yeah, I'm back to 1 show a week now.
I launch 1 show a week.
Yeah, that is it. Some of my hosts do once every other week, It's about the consistency. But everything all of a sudden was in alignment. And so then we thought, right, yes, we've got the platform, check. Yes, they can have coaching, check. But the missing thing was the actual implementation of that information.
Mm-hmm.
And like you just said, it took you quite a while to actually launch your show.
Mm-hmm.
And what I wanted to do was help people speed up that process. Because yes, I can remember what it was like in the beginning. And again, they might sort of step out and go, yes, I'm going to do this thing until, it seems like a good idea. And then they hit, I call it the wall of fear, where doubt and worry starts to sort of creep in, and then they start overthinking and talk themselves out of doing it. And I wanted
because one of the ways I talked myself out of it, one of the first times I talked about it, is because when you go onto social media and you Google it, the rabbit hole that you can end up in around tech and all of that. And then some people just going, oh, just start it and don't worry about what it looks like or feels like. And that just didn't resonate with me. Now that may resonate with some people, but it didn't resonate with me. And I was like, no, because I'm wanting this to be different. And I think it needed to wait until now, because now is I think people are ready to listen to and having different ideas and recognizing that there are some taboo subjects that really need to start being talked about. And money is just one of them. I mean, hello, we are in 2024. Money needs to be discussed. Period. Um, and I also knew I wasn't going to do it by myself. I made the investment. Again, money, had to have a strategy. Okay, who am I going to hire? And then I made sure I hired who I needed. Okay, I don't want to do the tech. I don't want to know. I don't want to do I'll make decisions on what platforms we're using, but I don't want to do the back end stuff. I don't want to know anything about it. And having that, sometimes making investments is just what you need to catapult your business, and be able to expand and have that growth. And a lot of times having a money block will stop you from making that investment.
Oh,
And or for example, the investment in the microphone or the investment in what you need. And one of the things that I loved about mine is I was like, okay, look, I don't want the most expensive thing out there because hello, this is brand new. We can always upgrade. And I also don't want to start off with the cheapest thing that's not going to work. So he did his research and came back and gave me a list of the things I needed to buy. And honestly, ended up not being that expensive at all. And so I knew what I needed to do. Okay, this is investment. So sometimes we have to reach out and ask for that help and work through that block of, do I really have to make this investment? Or when they have a block, it's, do I really have to spend this money? And when you look at it as an investment in expanding your business and expanding that growth, a lot of times the investment's worth it.
100%. But I think it's can be very scary for an entrepreneur because you can get to a point, and if you've got just enough money coming in to pay your expenses, it's like, to jump to that next level, when are you going to make that jump to maybe outsource some of the stuff to give you back your time? Because we know
is it going to tipsy side the revenue? Hello, I understand that completely because that's what I've been going through for the last 5 or 6 months. So completely, and it's very, very scary. And you have to bring yourself back to the tools that you have and be strategic in the process of, okay, I'll make this investment now. What can we do to where we don't have to make this much of an investment until we get something back so that you're still able to pay yourself? And that's part of what I work with my clients because I work with my clients as a CFO/wealth coach. So I'm working with them on their mindset and their strategy so that they're not getting that block and they're not making so much of a huge investment that it bites them on the butt.
Oh, it's so important because otherwise, like I would say, pretty much all my other businesses, just because I've been self-employed since I was 19 years old. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 19. But the truth of it is, I was not a business owner. I had bought myself a full-time job. Plus, trust me, when we launched the fitness studio, we were the front of house, we were the cleaners, we were working ridiculous. We'd bought ourselves more than a full-time job, why I say it wasn't sustainable.
Yeah, because you weren't investing in other people to do what they're good at.
No, and we couldn't because we'd built the business around us. The moment we tried to bring other people in, our members weren't happy because they wanted us. And that's why I say that's ego. Not that it didn't come from that place, but we realized, oh my goodness, we've set this up all wrong. Mm-hmm. And I think for any entrepreneur, if you really, really want to create a business, you're not going to do it by yourself. There's not enough time in the day. Like you said, there's lots of things going on behind this, even with the online world. I jumped into this because I thought, I'm gonna have the laptop lifestyle and I can do what I want and I'm gonna have all this time. You're like, you're joking. I was working 16-hour days and working 7 days a week. But I get it. You have to start somewhere. In hindsight, if I had really believed in myself and didn't have that I'm not worthy story going on in the background, I would have just gone and got funding in the beginning and gone all in. I didn't. And I think people don't, because there is that little bit of fear. You think, I'm going to dip my toe in the water. I'm going to give it a go. Well, that kind of attitude actually.
And a lot of times too, especially with women entrepreneurs, is we're afraid of going to get funding because maybe we made some money mistakes and our credit's not as great, or we're afraid we're going to be denied for whatever reason. And then what, right? I started my business with less than nothing. I laugh about it now, but it wasn't a laughing moment back then. And it was in 2016. I had spent over 20 something years in corporate. And I was let go. And I had made the decision then that I was done with the migraines. I was done with the tension headaches. If I was going to barely make ends meet with my two girls, I was doing it on my terms so that I had time back. So to me, freedom and time was the currency that I needed. Okay, fine. If I can't, because I was working 50 hours a week and I was barely making ends meet. So, and I had to make time up every time I had to take time off to go take one of my girls to the doctor or whatever. And so I think it's important that, and at first I tried to do everything. And then the first thing I hired was someone to make the graphics because me and Canva do not get along.
I'm with you.
There is a love-hate relationship with that software. And I would either post and I wouldn't be able to keep up with the clients and the work I was doing, or I was keeping up with the clients and the work and I wasn't posting. And because I would end up, it would take me hours to create like one or two images. And I know there are some listeners that are listening to this going, hours, I can spit them out in 10 minutes. I love you. I envy you. Go for it. I have Canva. I pay for it. I literally go on there maybe a couple of times to find something or make a slight tweak to something that's already been created by my team. My team goes into my Canva.
Same as that.
And that gave me time back, right? Because the VA I invested in was able to create images, 10, 20 images, whatever, in 2 hours that I would be taking 2 hours to create one and get frustrated and not do. So sometimes the return on investment is your time. And I think that's important because that's one of the things that you realized was, okay, I'm burning myself out. I'm not thinking I'm worthy enough, one, to have help. And I think that's one of the things that we have to, one of the things in our money mindset that we have to shift, because in order to be sustainable, it's okay to have help. It's okay to have coaches. It's okay to have people behind you on the scene. Because I'm going to tell you now, the people I've got on my team that are behind the scenes, this podcast wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for them. Okay. Because all the stuff that goes into it. And yes, it's an investment. The person who makes my reels, my tech team, the ones that do the graphics, which is part of the tech, all of that stuff. There's things that are being done on behind the scenes that that gives me my time, and I can concentrate on my zone of genius.
Yes, you just hit the nail on the head there. You focus on your what is, and so everybody's going to be different. So like you said, some people are amazing at Canva, so you don't need help with Canva. Focus on your zone of genius and then outsource the rest. But I also think as women, I'm a mother, 2 girls, but they are older now. And I think there is sometimes a bit of a mental block in, well, if I ask for help, that means I'm a failure in some way. Again, all these stories.
Especially for women. Create. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very much so. And we don't want to ask for help. But actually, you don't know where some of the help. I mean, I've had 2 actually of my coaches. The guy that told me it's going to take you 3 times as long to create this and cost you 3 times as much. At one point, he wanted to come into my business, but it wasn't the right thing. He had slightly different ideas to me. And I thought, no, Cameron.
It's not in alignment.
It's not, if it's not in alignment, and I love him.
Be in alignment.
Yes, it's got to be the right thing. And then this latest coach, I took on a coach, and then we've he's invited me to come into his business to grow the podcast profit school. So, ask for help. There is nothing wrong in asking for help. I don't know anybody, I don't know if you do, that has, and I'm not saying I've made it. I've got a long way to go. I've got big goals. But I don't know anybody who I would consider has made it that hasn't had help. Nobody does it by themselves.
And I'm actually going to tell you that as a woman, especially for a long time, asking for help was hard for me. I've come a long, long way. It's sometimes still hard, and I've come a long way, and I'm not afraid to ask for help as much now. And one of the things that, as you were talking, and I was just thinking about it, I've come farther from asking for help and leaning into the people who have that zone of genius and given me the help than I would have if I wouldn't have asked for help.
I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing.
I think that's important, because even my coach, who he's made it further than me, is what I would call it, right? And he still says he's got a ways to go because he's got big dreams. He's wanting to change the world. He wants to make a huge impact, which is the same thing I want to do. And he even said when he started asking for help, that's when things started happening. And so I think it's important that we as women realize that when we ask for help, it doesn't mean we can't do it. It doesn't mean we're not good enough, and it doesn't mean we're a failure. It simply means we're asking for help to get us from here to here. And a lot of times that help is going to take something off of you that's going to give you your time back, that you can focus on your zone of genius so that you can do what I call create, retain, and expend wealth.
Yeah. And you're going to get there a lot faster. You're just going to get
that one.
I'm going to be 52 in a couple of months. It's like,
I'm going to be 51 in July. So
yeah, I'm
totally got it.
I'm like all in. I'm getting there faster. I've only just become a digital nomad as of October last year because my girls have grown and flown.
Mine aren't. Mine are 20 and 12. So
you've got a way to go.
I had them later in life.
You've got a way to go, but it's
yes.
This is the thing. It gives you the freedom to choose. Mm-hmm. It's the freedom. It's not necessarily about the money. It's about what that money can do. It gives you choice. Mm-hmm. Not everybody wants to travel. I've always wanted to travel. I've spent probably half of my adult life abroad. I had said to my daughters, I'm not doing another winter in the UK, and I'm still here, and it's February because I'm helping out my eldest, who's 24. But they know this is the last one. I'll be off soon.
I will come and visit you when it is not 20 degrees below zero. See, I love traveling, and I will not do it anywhere cold during the winter. And I can't say that because I was actually supposed to be going to Whistler a few weeks ago, and I had to cancel at the last minute. But I was going to be, and I told my coach that he needed to understand the fact that I was going to Whistler in February. He needed to realize how much that meant. I trusted him, and I valued his work because I don't do the cold. Okay.
The cold.
I live in the South.
It's not for me. I need the sunshine. I should be in Mexico right now. That was the plan.
Yes.
That was the plan. I should be in Mexico right now. I need some sunshine. But for others, they might not want to ever do that. But the point is,
just speaking on stages is something you want to do, and it's something I want to do, and it may not be something that someone else wants to do. The money and being able to make that impact and create that wealth. The money is energy. It gives you a choice. It gives you, especially if you are able to work through those money blocks, it gives you the tool to be able to make the impact and make those choices.
Yeah. And I think that is the major thing. It's all about, what is it you want? What is it you want?
Exactly.
The money is going to give you, but we all need to, and I like I said right at the beginning, I'm still working on my money blocks. I know they're still there. And it is something that you've got to continually work on. Once I sort of got over some of it and realized that, yes, I can charge a higher premium and I'll over deliver. It's all about, well, I'll give more, but that fear of, because I would be thinking, oh, I want to help these people that are just starting out, just because I can remember what I was like, oh, if somebody had helped me. But that's all scarcity mindset. It's all scarcity mindset. You can still help people. You can
And
still,
charge a higher premium for the ones who are
yes.
further along. Yeah, it's something
And
I've
it's your
realized.
business. It's your
Right.
business. You could always give extra help. Or again, now what we tend to do is rather than just provide the platform, we're giving more help so that they're more successful quicker. So then they're more likely to stay, because if we just gave them the minimum, they were by themselves and they've given up. So that didn't
Right.
work, did it?
Right. Tell our listeners what you said that you had something for our listeners, which will be in the show notes. Can you tell them about that, what that is?
Well, that's our we do a monthly free workshop, and it's really just for, it is for everybody. However, what we focus on is if you're a coach or an expert, specifically if you have some kind of high ticket offer, if you like the idea of having a podcast, you actually can use it as the driving force behind your leads and sales. If you are a little bit tired of being all over the place in your business and constantly on social media, because again, going back to be careful what you wish for, right? I was teaching this organic marketing on social media, and you've got to do this and you've got to do all these different posts and, do slide into DMs and then guess what happens if it works? You are constantly on your phone, dealing with notifications, jumping on discovery calls with people who really aren't a good fit. And that's what I mean, where I felt I was close to burnout because I was trying to keep up. I was using Trello boards to try and organize like who I'd spoken to and have I followed up with enough. And I was just all over the place, and I just felt I was a slave to my calendar. Now, yes, I get paid for showing up on my podcast. I can't retire yet on that, just on that income alone. But at least you can see where it's heading. And then now all I do is turn up. I do a monthly workshop. It's really to just give people the blueprint. Because like you said, there's so many moving parts, and that's what puts people off. So we want to just sort of showcase what is possible, especially if you're selling high ticket stuff, and give them the blueprint so that they walk away. When you have clarity of that, okay, what does this actually look like? How can I use this to give me back my time? Because yes, it has given me back my time. We don't do a pitch. There's no offer stack at the end of it. There is an invitation to work with us because really all we do is the implementation of that blueprint. Okay. So for a lot of people, when they're overthinking and recording and re-recording their first podcast because they're panicking, again, I try to eliminate all of that because when we run our implementation days, I co-host their first podcast. So we give them our formula because we do have a specific formula that can be used for whether you're guesting on podcasts, whether you're hosting your own solo show, or whether you're interviewing others. We have a very specific formula. And you can go and watch YouTube videos and find out different things. You can read a book about it. but it's about the doing it. And that's
Mhm.
the step that I wanted to overcome for people is when you do it and you experience it yourself, then you get it and then you're more likely to keep doing it.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Very much
So
so.
I co-host their first one so that when they come to the implementation day, which is always 2 weeks after, at least 2 weeks after, to give us time to do all the post-production stuff, we actually launch their podcast channel on that day. We go through absolutely everything so that they can see what needs to be done and they can either do it themselves or we can take care of the post-production. So it's really taking somebody from a blueprint to, okay, are you ready? Let's stop procrastinating. Let's stop overthinking it. Let's just get on and do it.
Yep. So sometimes ripping the Band-Aid off is a good thing.
Absolutely.
That's what I say. It's okay. It's time to rip that Band-Aid off.
Yeah, sure. Because coaching is great. And, yes, there is the option for ongoing coaching. But what I found personally, and it might not be the same with everybody else, but it was just like, they're still not taking action. Well, what is stopping you? It's the overthinking and overanalyzing and come on.
Right. And sometimes people need the coaching and the help with some of the implementation so that they get out of their heads, right?
Yes.
So thank you.
We're always in our heads.
Yeah, well, so we're not in our heads as much. How about that?
Yeah.
That's one of the things I tell my coach. It's like, I've been in my head too much. I need to get out of my head. It's dangerous when I'm in there too long because I start overthinking.
Practice. That's when I always come back to, I've got to practice my shush, Karen, verbally and mentally.
Yep.
Everything flows a lot easier.
Yep. Yeah. That's one of the things I'm learning is it's great that I'm analytical and I need to learn to be able to, like you said, mentally and verbally. A lot of times I'll this verbally, but mentally in here, it is going 90 miles an hour. And that's even more dangerous. Thank you very, very, very much for being on my show. I truly appreciate it. I hope that you, my sassy friend, enjoyed this conversation, candid conversation of money and the money mindset and seeing what's possible and that it's okay that you have these dips and these ups and dips and ups and dips because in the end you can still end up being where you're supposed to be and it's okay to ask for help. So until next time, my sassy friend, remember to stay sassy. Thank you. Bye. Thanks for joining us this week on Cash and Sass. Check us out on social media and on our website at www.transcendentwealthco.com, where you can download my free Money Story Start Guide. The website again is www.transcendentwealthco.com. And as always, subscribe to the show to catch every new episode and leave us a review so we can continue to bring you fresh content. And remember, yes, it is possible to have sassy and sexy money. See you next week.